Hey, we're live now. Hey, we like your pod.
And we're going to tell you why again. Hi, it's Dawn here. And thank you for being so patient with us if you've been waiting on YouTube. It's Dawn here, and I'm joined by my trusted partner, Matt Pickett, the most patient man on the planet, and our very special guest, Haley, at Bales of Hay with lots of wise. Haley, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Tell us how your week was.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me on. My week was great. Started a new job, and so everything's kind of been all over the place. It's been really good.
So, Haley, I love that you have a new job. That's great. This is right. So, for the people who are watching and listening, right, we did like the first 30 minutes of the show, then realized we weren't live. So there's a whole conversation we're about to have that we already had. But anyhow, so Haley, what's the industry you're working in? Do you love it or what?
I do love it. So I was in insurance, as you guys know, but I did transition to an insurance brokerage. So it's a little bit different, working with a lot more carriers and have a little bit more flexibility and working from home. So it's great. How's your week, Matt?
Yeah, working from home is awesome, I would say, because I actually work from home on Thursdays and Fridays. And so there's that rhythm to the week of like getting into the Thursday, because we do the show on Thursday nights, and it's like just kind of like feels like moving into the weekend. But I'm having a great week. I'm really excited because tomorrow is my daughter's first band concert. Of course, as a former band director, that's a very exciting thing for me. I've been helping her with trumpet the whole year. So really, really excited about that. How about you, Don?
I didn't know it was trumpet. I knew it was band, but I didn't know it was trumpet. I love that. Maybe she can write our next theme song. Oh, man, my week has been great. My physical therapy is going great. I'm getting a little bit stronger. I'm a little sore, but I'm getting my mileage up and just kind of dealing with that and just having a good old time. But the most important thing to me is that there's only 12 weekends left. 12! That's what, 3 months? 12 weekends left till the preseason starts in the NFL. And so I can't even believe it. And I can't believe it that we're this close. And Twitter is talking about what games who's going to. And that's really cool. So, but we're so excited, Haley, to chat with you. And we're so glad you're here. By the way, you have the cutest kid on the planet. So he's so cute. I love it. And I love your little stories about when he hits you and all those like only boy mom things that only a boy mom can appreciate. So any fresh takes you have for us on the Packers schedule this season? Any favorite matchups or any of that you are most dreading?
Yeah, so I'm super excited for this season. I would say I'm most excited about the Packers-Cowboys game at Lambeau. It is going to be cold, I'm sure, but we will definitely be there. I think everybody knows by this point that my boyfriend is a huge Cowboys fan. So that'll be interesting to see how we react to a Packers-Cowboys game because we haven't got that yet. So I'm excited for that one. And then the one that I would say I'm dreading the most, Matt, I already know your answer. And it was hard because that was, it was between that and the Bills for me. I just feel like Josh Allen is going to come back and he's going to be great. So yeah, I'm kind of dreading that one.
The Cowboys one is definitely one that I want to go to. I'm kind of leery about the prices right now because they're so high, but just to see that game in person would be amazing. It'll be cold, right? But like not as cold probably as December or like January or cross fingers February, right? So I feel like that's a cold I can take, especially having grown up in Wisconsin. I feel like, I was born into the cold. I know the cold. I can handle that cold. But if I do go to one of the games in Lambeau, it'll be my first time going to Lambeau Field ever. So like, I feel like this is the year to do it finally, finally make it happen, especially, as a Packers owner now, somebody with a podcast about the Packers more or less, probably it's about time I actually got to Lambeau. But definitely am dreading the one with the Buccaneers personally. It's going to be in a hot part of the year, in a hot part of the country, and they've done poorly in those situations. Plus, against the Buccaneers, not a great track record in the last few years. So nervous about that one. But I mean, there's never any way we're going to go undefeated. That doesn't happen to teams very often at all. So yeah, there's a couple here and there, not a big deal, How about you, Don?
Yeah, and as Andy said last week, as long as we're playing well in the second half of the season, and of course during the playoffs, which we should be at, we're good, But it is hard not to just fret over some of these games, especially starting on the road. I'm not thrilled that we're facing a divisional opponent, one of our more formidable ones, as our first game on the road. I would love to have that at home, or at least not with that particular team. So,
And they're a terrible horn thing that they have.
oh,
That's
I don't want
obnoxious.
to, I feel that, how I am. I don't like to be negative about anybody and all that. But yeah, we have our favorite teams that we like to play. And that's not my favorite one to start the game. But hey, I'll be so happy. I'm happy for preseason, man. I don't care. So
they're coming to Kansas City for preseason, actually.
Yeah, that would be fun. And then there was one preseason preseason that it's home. Who's that with? Is that, I forgot, the 49ers? Anyway, it looked like, hey, that wouldn't be a bad preseason game. It was a pretty good team. Of course, you're not seeing who you're going to see later, but I'd be okay with going to a preseason as long. November's too cold for me. And I don't like, if I can even travel because of health reasons and I am immune deficient and all that, I get sick normally. That was before the pandemic, every time I go on a plane. So with full protection, I just can't seem to not. But so I wouldn't mind a preseason game, but November would be, you're starting to get into the holidays and kids are in school and they're spreading germs and all that. So I think I'm like, when's the safest time for me not to become seriously ill when I travel? That's a horrible thing. But yeah, so September, October is probably my window personally. So that's my personal window. So hey, Haley, we like you, Haley, and we like what you do on Twitter and with Game On Wisconsin. So your Twitter reads Hales, which of course is short for Haley's, bales of hay with lots of Y's. And you are the first lady of Packers Twitter. So we're very honored to have you with us. But you're living in a Chiefs world. You're living in a Chiefs world. You're a boy mama, which we love about you. And you are the social media coordinator for Game On Wisconsin. So my question to you is, how do you really feel about Mahomes and the Chiefs if you're living there?
So I think everybody kind of already knows how I feel about the Chiefs. I think there's some people that say came for you being a Packers fan and stayed for the Chiefs slander. So I like Mahomes. I think he's a good person, great player. Not a big fan of his wife, which I know sounds horrible because, women, we should lift other women up. But I think some of her actions are pretty unexcusable. But that's just a personal opinion. As far as the Chiefs go, not a fan of the Chiefs. I know it breaks everyone's heart when I say that. Of course, not Packers fans, but my family and friends and everybody in Kansas City. They don't like hearing that I'm not a Chiefs fan. So yeah, that's how I feel about them.
And I think that, putting some, I think when I was like being kind of negative about his girlfriend, wife, what's their status, whatever it is.
I think they just got married, so I think
they're married.
Officially wife.
So putting some kind of shade on his wife. I think that's not unfair in the situation, but it's also worth mentioning that his brother sucks too. So, I think we can kind of together, same pea pod there. Yeah, not great.
Yeah,
I think that's the first mean thing I've ever heard Matt say. I mean, it wasn't really that mean. It was true. But I think that's the first not positive thing I've ever heard come out of Matt's mouth.
Well, I mean, I think for me, it's like it's probably too reductive to say that like Mahomes didn't play as well this year because of all the stuff on the side with his brother and his sister. But I mean, you see those TikToks, where they're acting like fools and he's in the background just like, oh my God. It's like,
yes.
If these fools are affecting his play and people's enjoyment of the games and stuff like that, I'm gonna take issue with that. I don't like that one bit.
Yeah, we try to stay really positive here, and we try really hard not to, disparage any other teams or fan base, because I personally like to see as many NFL games as possible. But yeah, sometimes people's behavior, whether it's in the NFL or outside of the NFL, calls attention to them, and with that comes criticism, and unfortunately, sometimes it can be really bad. I think as long as we keep it under control, I don't think there's any need to hate, or spread hate or be vitriolic or any of those things. But yeah, sometimes some people get on our nerves. We're human. We're just human. So as a human living in Chiefs world, you're in Kansas City, which is a charming town, city, I guess. So tell us your origin story. That we love origin stories. So how did you become a Packers fan in Kansas City?
Yeah, so I get the question all the time, actually. People just can't believe that I'm anything other than a Chiefs fan here. But my dad, when he was 5, the first game he ever watched was the Packers-Eagles game. The Packers did lose, but he liked their uniforms and the colors. So my dad decided that he was a Packers fan. And then obviously my brother and I were born and raised Packers fans. We didn't really have any other choice. So I'm glad that was the choice I had.
I love how so many origin stories for sports, and I feel like I hear it a lot for Packers fans, is that it comes back to family. Definitely for me, growing up watching the games with my dad, and even to this day, like texting with him during the game and like during the draft and stuff like that. It's there's so much of a family component to that. I love that so much.
It is. And along those lines, so another question we'd love to ask is, our podcast, we do, as I mentioned, we try really hard to stay we don't have to try super hard to be positive, because that's kind of our nature. That's why we came together, Matt and I think one reason, our sensibilities in that way. But yes. our podcast, our podcast and Packer Twitter in many cases is all about relationships and community, even though it's online. So we'd love for you to share how your people, your family, your friends, whoever are your people in your little people pod, help to support you in what you do with your hobby as social media coordinator with Game On Wisconsin. And how did you hook up with those folks? We'd love to hear.
Yeah, so my family and friends definitely support me. A lot of them are not Packers fans, other than the people on Twitter that are now my friends. But they all watch any of the podcasts that I'm on. And then my boyfriend actually is probably my biggest supporter in all aspects of life, which is how it should be. But it's not always like that. So I'm super grateful for that. But I remember, Todd messaged me on Twitter one day and was like, hey, do you want to guest host Lombardi's Bar? Dan's going out of town and we need someone to babysit Jimmy and I. And I was like, cool, I'm a mom. I'm definitely qualified for that job. So I was not qualified to babysit Todd and Jimmy ever. They're hilarious. But that's besides the point. So, I was like, yeah, cool. I have no idea what I need for a podcast. I've never done one before. So I went and got like some headphones to be able to hear them better. And then I remember, I think it was like the day of, I'm at work and my boyfriend called me and he was like, hey, I know you have this podcast tonight. I'm buying you a microphone. I'm going to send you a picture. And so he sent me a picture of it. I sent it to Todd. I was like, hey, is this good? I need help. Like, I don't know anything about this. But yeah, that's how that went. And so I'm super lucky for my support system that I do have.
Bought you a microphone. He's a keeper.
That's beautiful.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that.
And it's really beautiful. We've had some really beautiful stories. Andy Herman's story was pretty nice too. They're all great. They're all great. We love hearing about those who support us to do in doing what we do with our online or podcast presence or YouTube or whatever. We are wherever our passion might lie. So our final question kind of ties into all that love that we like spreading. And it's about our Packer community and our NFL community online, whether it's on Twitter, again, on YouTube, or what other platform you might be listening on. One thing that you might love most about the online community, and one thing you would change, and if that's specific to the Packers or in general.
So the one thing that I love the most, and this goes for Packers and NFL Twitter, honestly, because I think that we all have each other's back pretty well for the most part. I guess it kind of depends on your fan base and the rivalries, because I think we've seen like Vikings fans, like I don't think that we can really agree with Vikings fans on Twitter, it seems like, from what I've seen. But I speak for most teams, I think. I just love, the community that we have and the support that we have from everybody on Twitter. The one thing that I would change, though, is when something doesn't seem to be going our way, it kind of feels like Packers Twitter overreacts quite a bit, and it's like the world is burning around them and nothing's ever going to be good anymore, and it's like the end of the world. So that's the only thing I would change.
Yeah, I think a good word to describe that is fatalistic, right, Dawn? So the Packers Twitter community, I think just we all want so badly for another Super Bowl for us, and it seems like people just freak out if it seems like there's a threat to that. Something's going to happen. We're not going to get to the Super Bowl, and they get really upset really fast. Just definitely like overreactive in a lot of ways. I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm like that, but I would say a lot of people in the Packers Twitter community are definitely. But that support, though, I feel like in our community is so amazing. Right? I just think back to like when Aaron needed help with vet bills, and JJ Leahy was like, hey, you know what? Let's do a GoFundMe. And like everyone was throwing money into it, and it made like Aaron's life possible, to deal with stuff. Just a great example of the kind of support and community and love that there is amongst us.
Yeah, that's a really great example. And there's definitely more love than hate or fatalistic, but they tend to stand out. And one thing I was thinking about as we were talking about this is, as Packer fans, it's not a bad problem to have, where you're so close every year, or at least the last few years in the playoffs. You really number one seed, right? So when you see that slip away, it can be pretty. I can tell you, I'm still bruised from the last two seasons playoff games that we really should not have lost. I mean, of course, you can't ever take anything for granted with football, and that's what's so fun about it. But when it's so close, and so close, and I will say, I really didn't start becoming a fan. So I've had it good too, because my fandom started basically around Aaron Rodgers coming on the scene. My first game was a preseason game where he was the first year he was starting, and it was right after that whole Favre thing. And so, yeah, so I've had it pretty good too. My dad would always talk about Favre and all that, but I didn't get it. I was like, what? I don't like football, Dad, whatever. But now he'd be really proud of me, I think. But when you have it good and you have a powerful organization like the Packers, and you're so close, I think, I don't know, maybe that's why Twitter does seem to be fatalistic, is because we're so close. It's within our grasp. It's not like a long shot. So for those who are fatalistic, we love you too, and we understand, because we should have been to the Super Bowl the last 2 years. So
it's a more exciting season, but it also makes the heart break harder when it doesn't come through. For sure.
Yeah, I'm still brokenhearted. It's 2 years ago, and then this year it was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding me? That losing last. Yeah. Okay, let's not talk about that anymore. So now let's get to our superlatives, Maddie.
Oh, wait, I have some follow-up questions for Haley, though, actually. So real quickly, things I was thinking about as we were going here. Something I've always wondered, Haley. Bales of hay, do you mentally say the Y's, and also is the number of Y's significant?
No. So I was in high school when I made my Twitter handle and my Instagram. And then my best friend in high school and middle school, her name was also Haley. and spelled the same way. So funny story, one day we were like, hey, let's just confuse everyone. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to put my Instagram bales of hay. And so I typed in bales of hay. Obviously 1Y was not available. 2Y is not available. 3, 4, 5 finally works. Okay, so that's how I got bales of hay. Then I was like, and then you do Hales of Bay with 5Y. So even to this day, our handles are bales of hay and Hales of Bay, even to this day. And when we were in high school, we had the same like profile picture to like mess them up even more. People had no idea who was who. I mean, not a clue. They were like, who is who? And I'm like, gotta figure it out. So that was how bales of hay came to be a thing. So 5Ys has no meaning, and I just say bales of hay.
That's it's really interesting to hear that, because I've wondered about the handle. It's because it's so unique, and it's so like I figured there had to be a story behind it. Yeah, that's great. My other follow-up question is, so it's kind of a compliment / question. It seemed like you really kind of like stormed onto the Packers Twitter scene about a year ago. I can't remember exactly when it was, but because time has no meaning, post quarantine.
Right.
And the way how you kind of came out, I was like, all of a sudden, like you're just this presence, and everyone was like, "Hey, Haley's awesome!" And everyone's following you, and you're doing these really like great things that like you've always done great things on Twitter, and it was this amazing meteoric rise you had. So, what was that like for you?
So it was really interesting. Like, I don't even know what happened. Okay. And like, I have been on Twitter, like I said, since middle school. So my Twitter first was like a Justin Bieber stan account, right? Because like I'm a middle school girl and I was obsessed with Justin Bieber. Okay. Well then like, you grow up and you're like, okay, well, I just have Twitter and like, I just post random things whenever I feel like tweeting something. Well, then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start posting about the Packers. And like, I had no idea Packers Twitter was a thing. I had no clue. And so like one day my phone is just blowing up and it's like, so-and-so followed you. This person followed you. This person. And I'm like, what is happening? And I call my brother and he goes, oh, you're in Packers Twitter now. And I was like, what is Packers Twitter? Like, do I have to have a special Twitter for this? Do I have to special hashtag? Like, what is Packers Twitter, right? I had no idea it was a thing. I mean, there were accounts that I followed that were Packers fans just because I was like, oh, they like the Packers. Cool, me too. No idea Packers Twitter was a thing or nearly as big as it is. So yeah, my brother is how I found out about Packers Twitter. It was really interesting, just how it all happened, and it all just blew up really fast. I felt like I was, I had like 500 followers and now I'm over 4,000 within a couple months. So It's crazy how it happened. I don't know why people follow me. Some of my tweets are like have no meaning whatsoever. I'm like 4,000 people are interested in what I have to say. Why?
Well, I can't speak for the 4,000, but I can speak for myself as to why I started following you and why I'm happy when you show up on my timeline. And that's just that, in a word, Haley, you're delightful. Like your tweets are always like a bright spot. They're like, funny or insightful or sassy or like just any of the number of things that it's just like, just delightful. So I think that's, a big part of why you got so many followers. I think people were like, oh, hey, Haley's awesome. And it just kind of spread, just one of those weird things, but it's, I think it's really cool.
Yeah. And it's actually, so like I said earlier, Todd had reached out to me on Twitter and asked me to guest host Lombardi's Bar while Dan was gone. Well, so when we were in Green Bay last year, we went to the home opener for the Lions game. And so they did their live podcast, and like I had met Jacob and Jimmy and Todd and everyone, but like it never went any further than that because, my brother and Jacob were good friends. So I was like, okay, well, and then Todd messaged me about that. And apparently it was like a tryout, but not a tryout, because Todd had an idea. Of course he did. Todd had an idea about a female Packers podcast. And it's funny because whenever he said that, I was like, wow, I really thought about, how at the time there weren't any that I knew of. So next season on Game On Wisconsin, I will have a female only Packers podcast with 2 other Packers female fans. So we're super excited about that. But yeah, it's just crazy how it works. And I don't think that I would have had that opportunity had my Twitter not randomly blown up one day.
Well, you're super excited about that. And now I'm super excited about that too. I can't wait for that. Part of me wants to ask who the other 2, but like, I don't want to know yet. I don't want to like have the surprise, or I can tell you like you're trying to keep that as a surprise. So like, don't tell us, but sure, I'm curious. Let me just say.
It will be, we are going to announce it the start of training camp. So soon.
Okay. So look forward to. Dawn, I don't want to just monopolize this. So did you want to jump into anything there?
Can't wait to hear. I'm intrigued, and I'm sure it will be great. I think you dropped a little hint, whether you realize it or not. Pro tip, I should say. Pro tip. Don't you love when people say that? It tends to be in life in general, but definitely as social media, but when we're not trying hard and when we're just ourselves and we're really not concerned about getting followers and all those things, that's when things blow up, right? We're just ourselves. And yeah. And so we love that about you, that you're just yourself and you're just talking about your life, whatever's happening that day, when at that moment, sometimes in the moment. And yeah, so you just dropped a little tip there, and that is why following you is so delightful. And because you're getting joy out of it, and it's not an effort. You're doing what you do, whether it's your relationship or your momhood or your Packerdom or whatever that is. You're doing it because you love it. So Maddie, I know Hales didn't bring us a superlative because she wasn't required to, and we're not pressuring you that. But guess what? We're in this together, Hales, because I didn't bring any superlatives this week either. Well, sometimes when we have guests on, we tend to go long, and so I wanted to give everyone else an opportunity. But Matt always has the best superlatives, so we'd love to hear what you brought us this week, Maddie.
Yeah, sure. I will say most weeks I find it pretty easy to find superlatives because there's enough going on and there's like content and people are like talking about stuff. This is definitely one of those weeks where it was like, we're kind of getting into the dead period, like the extended lull, between like things really happening. So it wasn't quite as easy to find things initially, but as the week kind of wore on, I did find a couple things that I'm really happy to talk about. So my first one, this just really made me laugh. It was Steve Perhach on the Wednesday Pack a Day this week. He's often the host, right? So he'll like move things along and provide transitions and stuff like that. And there was, I think Dusty or Sarah, I can't remember, said something about grasping at straws. And Steve's segue into the next thing was, and speaking of grasping at straws, the Falcons just signed Geronimo Adelson, and it just killed the other host. I'm driving in the car like to work on my way to work, and I'm just like laughing like an idiot in my car. So that it's kind of a random superlative, but funniest transition goes to Steve Perhach for that.
I like it.
My next one I want to mention is I think I'll go with best dude is going to be the superlative here. Best dude. This is kind of a joint one, actually. Really, this is for Robin Adams, who, for those who don't know, he's an excellent writer for Packers stuff, but not just Packers stuff. He covers other Wisconsin sports as the co-owner of Wisconsin Sports Heroics. Robin's a good dude, and so Tim Backus. I still don't know if it's Backus or Bacchus. I need to figure this out. Tim, of course, the Cheesehead Origins for Cheesehead TV, and did one on Robin this week. So Robin, really good dude. Tim, really good dude. So it's kind of a co-thing there, but focusing on Robin since it was a profile about him. Really, really delightful. I've been loving Tim's work on these profiles, especially the one he did of you, Dawn, of course. And so to see one, of Robin, who's a guy who I've got to know through Twitter, it was really cool to see that. So that was my second one, and my last one is most explosive. So most explosive goes to explosive. It goes to Dusty. Speaking of Dusty,
Um,
he's back on the writing articles, posting stuff out there again. He took a little bit of time off, which I think definitely he more than deserved for all the content he has provided us over most of the year. So the article he wrote this week for Cheesehead was looking at the Packers' explosive plays from the season and talking about like what were the concepts that led to those different like 32 or whatever top explosive plays. Actually, I think it's because he defines explosive plays with a very specific thing. I think it's 16 yards of passing or 12 yards of running, I think is what it is. Okay. So looking at all the plays that like fit that metric. So he broke all of them down by what was the concept that was used to make that happen for the passing plays, that is. But it was cool because, one, it was just like fascinating to read it, of course. And Dusty talking about, passing play scheme stuff is always like one of my favorite things. But I love too that at the top of the article, he's talking about how he was just going to write an article about the stick concept, but then he was listening to one of our favorite podcasts, Blue 58 with John Meerdink. And John Meerdink was talking about explosive plays and wanted to look at that a little bit. So Dusty was like, it made him curious, like, well, what were the schemes that made those things happen? And just digging into that. So like, it's just so cool to have like, a really smart content producer, hearing something from another smart, awesome content producer and like producing like this new thing that wasn't going to happen otherwise. And it's like this synergy, this beautiful, there's community right there, that is part of like a community thing, part of what makes this all so great. So it made me happy. Made me really happy.
That makes me happy too. I love that. I will say, I did think of something I was going to say in terms of superlative, and this is just an add-on from one of the podcasts that I mentioned either last week or the week before, as far as summer reads. There is, and I didn't realize it was going to happen because it was kind of iffy about whether this trial was going to happen or not, because other things are happening with it. But there was a podcast I recommended called Over My Dead Body. And as it turns out, there'll probably be additional episodes because of this on this, and there'll be other podcasts. There'll probably be a movie about this. This is an incredible, sad, tragic, but remarkable story about humans that live among us right now in Florida. But there is a trial that happened. It was supposed to be delayed, and it's happening right now. And that is the one of the many conspirators and persons responsible for the murder of Dan Markel. And so that trial started happening. And so I've been kind of listening to that. I have to admit, I have been watching that trial. I replay it to my credit on double speed, so I'm not just sitting there watching a trial, and I'm usually so I can pick up the gist of it. But if you are going to take up that recommendation of Over My Dead Body, the trial of Katie Magbanua, I believe is her name, is going on, and it's being live streamed by many outlets on YouTube. And it's a story for the ages about humanity and characters and all of that. So if you're interested in that one, you might want to check out that YouTube trial going on right now too. So yeah, so Hales, this is the time when we talk about our final thoughts. So by the way, Hales, do you listen to, what podcasts are your favorite? Do you listen to any non-NFL podcasts or not?
No, there is one. There's a lady that I've been following on TikTok for a long time. Her name is Jo Johnson Overby. And she's a mom now. She is a photographer. Well, she was a photographer. But she's huge on TikTok now, Instagram. So basically she just, works social media and is an entrepreneur, but she did own her own photography business and she did really well with it. And that's actually how I found her and ended up following her on TikTok. She's from Arkansas. So I do listen to her podcast sometimes, but other than that, that's all.
Yeah. Oh, we'll check it out. We'll find out. We'll get that link from you and drop it in our show notes along with ours. Yeah. As well. And Maddie, any final thoughts? And what do you have to say to the folks before we sign off?
Yeah, final thoughts. I would just say that I have no thoughts, Dawn. I'll go to the script. I have nothing to shed any light on. So, hey, friends, make sure you are following Haley. She is amazing on Twitter at Bales of Hay with 5. Is it 5? Did you say 5?
5. That's right.
Very important. And of course, you'll find links in our show description for everyone we mentioned. So please check it out. And when you subscribe to our podcast and I guess our YouTube channel too, you help us spread the love in our community. Oh, try that again. You help us spread the love in our community. And by sharing our podcast with your friends and family, you help the community and those who need positive influences and a little football fun in their lives.
Yes, Maddie and Haley, we both love you so much. We love all of you listening. We're so glad to know you, to be fans of you, and to have the luxury of being fans of the most storied team in the NFL. We appreciate your support and your subscriptions, and we look forward to seeing you next week on
Hey, we like your pod. And now,
Football in general comes down to discipline and people owning their roles. And when you aren't disciplined or you go outside the scheme, bad stuff happens.